Hello everybody and welcome back to lesson 8 in my Python for Beginners full course program. Last time we talked about a very powerful tool called the while loop, and we are going to continue that with today's lesson, building out our own full out login program. So the user needs to type in their email as well as their password. We will be able to break out of this while loop and log them in and allow them to access the rest of our program. But if the user makes any mistakes, we want that to repeat over again to let the user know that, hey, that was not correct, please try again. And our while loop will give them the opportunity to try the email and password once more. Make sure that you stay till the end of the video because I'm going to be showing you some cool security features as well as giving the user hints whether they're even typing in an email or not. So stay tuned. So make sure you have a new program all opened up. And normally when I build these login programs, I'm actually trying to communicate with Google or Facebook or Apple. I will get the user's input and I will send that input to one of those servers, and I will let them decide whether that was correct or not correct, and they'll send it back to me and let me know. And I'll tell the user whether that's correct or not. But we're not going to do that because that is more advanced than what we are learning right now. So let's just make this easy. We're going to store our email inside of this variable called email, and you can call this whatever you want. I would suggest doing something simple because we're going to be testing this a lot. Do that all lowercase, and then we're going to do the same thing as password. So password equals something simple. I'll do cat. We are going to store that inside of a variable. So I'm going to do this in the same order as we did email password. I'll do email underscore input, and I'll set that equal to an input function and let the user know that it's now time to type in their email. So enter your email, and I can even do a little bit of a \n or new line so that the user can type on the next line. And I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to do a little shortcut here. I'm going to select email. I'm going to do Control D if you are on Windows. If you're on Mac, it's Command D. And as you can see, I just selected both of these emails right here by doing that. Now I can call this password input, and it says enter your password. Let's go ahead and test that. And if you need to pause this to catch up, go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna hit run, see what it looks like. It says enter your email, and whatever I type in there and hit enter is now being stored inside of email. Now it's asking for my password, and now that's stored inside of password. So good job if you went through that so far. But now I want to see if the user typed in the correct email and password. Did they type in something that matches this? And same with their password. Let's see. We're going to say if email input was the same or double equals as email, then let's just let the user know that was correct. Print your email is correct. Otherwise, print your email is incorrect. So I'm going to test that. So if I did the correct one, which is python@gmail.com, and doesn't matter for password right now. Now it says your email is correct. And if I do just some jibber jabber for my email instead, it says your email is incorrect. So that's working. So I'm going to copy this and paste it again. If you want to know these shortcuts, I do have a YouTube video that talks specifically about those shortcuts to make you a more faster and more efficient coder. If you want to check out that video, here's the tag up above. But I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to highlight email here, and I'm going to do Control D, Control D, Control D, so that's all the emails I want to select. Now I'm going to change that to password. So the thing you want to be careful with if you're ever copy and pasting, that a lot of coders will accidentally not change the things that they need to change, like password instead of email. So I'm just going to make sure. So password input, password, your password is correct, your password is incorrect. All right, so this should work out for both of them now. Let's try it out. We already know that the email works. Now let's see password. Your email is correct, your password is correct, and let me do jibber jabber for both of those. Your email is incorrect, your password is incorrect. Perfect. But what if the user types something incorrectly? We want to not just let them know that, hey, that was wrong, but we also want to give them another chance to try again. So we're going to do our loop, and we're actually going to put the loop above the inputs. A lot of people would say put it right here, but we want our inputs to be inside of our loop, because if they type it in out here and it loops again and again, it's never asking for the user's input ever again. So we want that to be a part of it. So we need to say while something is true. Well, right now we don't have anything true. We don't have an age like we said in lesson 7. So we're gonna do a Boolean, and I'm just gonna call this repeat. That is not a keyword in Python. You can call that whatever you want, but repeat is a good one. And I'll set it to true. And I'll say while repeat, and our compiler will ask, is repeat true? Yes. So therefore run everything inside of the loop. But is there anything inside the loop? The answer is no. And how you know that is because remember of indentation, okay? So there's nothing indented in here. It's all the way to the left. So I'm gonna do this other cool little trick. I'm going to highlight everything underneath my while statement, and I'm gonna hit tab on my keyboard just once. Now everything is perfectly indented inside of there. Now, just with those 2 lines and indentation, let's just see how this runs. So enter your email, so python@gmail.com, enter your password, cats, and now it says your email is correct, your password is correct, and it's repeating. And when I do the incorrect stuff, it says incorrect, but it is repeating. So that is working really well. So make sure that yours works the same as mine up to this point, and once it does, continue with this video. But once that is working just fine, I want to ask myself, do I actually want this to repeat forever? When do I want this to stop repeating? Well, I don't want it to repeat if the user is typing it in correctly, correct? So let's say that whenever the user types it in correctly, not just the email, but as well as the password, then we want the loop to break and log the user in. So I'm gonna introduce something that is new to this course, something called compound conditionals, okay? And compound conditionals means that we can use these same conditionals, but we can use multiple on the same line. So I'm gonna say if email input is the same as email, and password input is the same as password, and I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here so it's not on a different line, then I want it to break out of my loop. So I need to set my repeat to false. Remember that once this is false, it will no longer repeat. So I'm going to say repeat equals false. And so if these are ever both true, the email input and the password input, then this will break the loop. And to make sure it does, let's come all the way to the left outside of our loop and print logged in. So let's see if this works. Enter your email. I'll do the incorrect ones at first, okay? But now I'm gonna do it correctly, just to kind of test all the different scenarios. And then cats. Cool, now it says your email is correct, your password is correct, logged in, and you can see this little orange arrow. That means my program has ended. There's nothing after this. So that worked just fine. So coming back to this compound conditional, this is a keyword in Python called and. This means that this has to be true and this has to be true. If just one of these is true but the other is not, this will not run. Or if they're both false, this will not run. So both of these have to be true. They're just great. There are other keywords out there like or. This means that only one of these has to be true for this to run, but if neither are true, it will not run at all. But because this is more of a security feature, we want to do and because we want to make sure that both the email and password are correct. So we're not just letting anybody in. Very good. So that is working nicely. Now I want to add a little bit of security to this. I want to make sure that if maybe a user does this too many times and they keep guessing wrong, that we should lock them out. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, well, where is the user going to make a mistake? Well, they're going to make mistakes, well, could be here in these else's, right? It says your email is incorrect, your password is incorrect. But here's the problem. We're going to be setting up a counter and we're going to call this fails. So if you remember in previous lessons, like the vowel counter, for example, we counted how many vowels were in there by setting it to 0. And we want to add 1 to it every time they make a fail. But if we do that here in these else statements, if the user types in the wrong email and the wrong password, it's going to count it against them twice in that single turn. So we don't want that to happen. We want it to be maybe here. We want to see if the entire combination is correct, right? So if it is, it'll do this. But if there's anything wrong with the combination, let's run this else. Else, we'll set fails to plus equals 1. And that just means that fails, whatever it is, which is 0 at first, we'll be adding 1 to it. So 0 plus 1 is 1, so fails is 1. And then if they make another mistake, fails would be 2, then 3, so on and so forth, okay? So for example, we are going to actually print fails here just to see what it does. I want to make sure it's actually counting. So right now you can see that 0 because that's fails. So let's make a mistake. So now it says 1, now it says 2, now it says 3. And it'll just keep doing that. That's working nicely. Now I don't want my while loop to repeat anymore if the user types it in too many times. We'll make a rule that if they make 3 mistakes, they will be locked out. So I'm going to come to my while repeat, and I'm going to delete repeat, and I'm going to say while fails is less than 3, then do this. So as long as they made less than 3 mistakes, it'll allow them to keep trying. So let's see what happens with just that in play. So enter your email. So I'm going to say some mistakes. Here's my second mistake, and then here's my third mistake. So it did lock me out, which is great. It's not letting me try, but it is logging me in still. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that. I'm just gonna say if fails is less than 3, then print logged in, just like that. So the same conditional as up here. So let's try that again. 1, 2, and here's my third mistake. Okay, now it's not logging me in. I want to make sure that if I get the correct combination, it's still working the same. So I'm going to do the correct combination, python@gmail.com, and then my password as cats. But look, it's not logging me in anymore. The reason is because, well, if I look over here, if my combination is correct, which it is, because it says email correct, password is correct, it says repeat is set to false. But guess what? We're not using repeat anymore. We took that out. So we can actually just get rid of our Boolean here because we're not even using it. We're gonna use another way to break out of a loop, which is a keyword called break. And let's see if that works. python@gmail.com, and then cats, cool. And so it broke out of the loop, and since my fails was set to 0, it was less than 3, so now it's logging me in. So very good job with that. I'm gonna get rid of my print fails now. That was just for testing purposes. So make sure yours is working up to this point, and it is. Now there is one thing that I noticed that I didn't quite like. Now if I did get locked out, and if I made my third mistake here, it just says incorrect, incorrect, and then it just stops. It's not good practice to just stop a program. You want to let the user know that, hey, you've been locked out of your account, you've tried too many times, and that's going to be a very, very easy thing to add in. If you remember from my previous lesson in lesson 7, I said that the while loop was just like an if statement. You can have an else when it comes to your if statements. So with while, I'm going to say, well, once fails is no longer less than 3, let's do an else. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of room here, and I'm going to do an else. And make sure that is lined up with your while right here. You see this little bar right here. So if fails is not true anymore, we're going to say print you've made too many failed attempts for security purposes. You have been locked out. Or you can say whatever you want there. So let's see what happens when I make my 3 mistakes now. Cool. So after 3 mistakes, it says you've made too many failed attempts. For security purposes, you've been logged out, and it's not saying logged in. But if I go in here and make maybe 2 mistakes, but on the third mistake, or on the third try, I do the correct one. So fails was 2, so because 2 is less than 3, it still says logged in. So that is working very good. Now, I did have a few followers say that they wanted a little bit more of a nicer feature where if the user was trying to type in an email but it wasn't an email at all, then we want to let the user know that it wasn't even an email that they set in. So I want to say if the user types in anything that's not an email, then we will just print them a little message to let them know that it needs to be an email. So let's kind of ask ourselves, what makes an email an email? Well, usually with an email, you have this @ symbol, and you also usually have a .com or something. That's not always the case, but we're gonna set that as the rule for our program. So I'm gonna say if the @ symbol in email input and .com in email inputs, then I'm just gonna say pass. It's kind of like a test. So I don't want it to say anything, I just want it to continue for the rest of the program. Otherwise, if the @ symbol or .com is not inside of the email's input, then we are going to print your email must contain an @ symbol and .com. If I did a email and I had .com in it, but no @ symbol, here's my password. Now it's gonna say your email must contain those 2 things. Now if I try it again with the @ symbol, but no .com, it's going to give me that message as well, which is great. But let's make sure that when I do both of them, that's still gonna work. So yada yada at gmail.com. So now I have both @ symbol and .com. Now it's just saying pass, so it's not giving me that error message anymore. And this should still work. I'm just gonna make sure it still works with everything else. And it does. So congratulations if you built that with me. If you have any issues about it at all, just go back, rewind, and make sure that everything is correct. I get a lot of followers that say, hey, I typed in exactly what you typed in, but mine is not working. Well, in this case, if you did type it exactly the way I did, it will work. So that means that you might have a small little error that's so small it's just hard to see. So check each line, make sure it is working, and that is working great. So thank you so much for showing up for lesson 8. And if you have any questions or suggestions for any tutorials, please let me know down in the comments. I'm also looking forward to opening up more courses for my channel. If you want to learn JavaScript or maybe React or web design, please let me know what you would like, and I would love to see your suggestions down in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. Happy coding.